Yes! So summer is always a great time for reading, and what better thing to do than to pick up a facilitation book. But there's so many books out there, so the hard question is, which book should I pick up? So in this video I want to give you a rundown of our most favorite and most recommended facilitation books so you can learn more about this craft. But I think before we do that, it's getting so sunny, I think I will be sweating to death here, so let's head back to the office first. So I'm in the office and it's a bit more cooler here. Nonetheless, I think because it's so sunny outside, I still need a towel because recording is always making me warm up. And the first book that I want to talk about is the Workshop Survival Guide. And that book is by Rob Fitzpatrick, and I think this is the book that I recommend the most because I think it's very accessible and it packs a lot of value for its small size. So the promise of this book is to make you feel more comfortable in designing and running workshops from scratch, whether they're 20 minutes long or 2 days long. And the focus here on the book is to make them really well designed and really well prepared in order to do the heavy lifting for you. When it comes to the contents, this book focuses a bit more on learning facilitation and learning workshops, but I do think that the insights can be transferred to other scenarios nonetheless. So basically for all types of facilitation. Just to give you an example of some of the hands-on tips that are included in the book, things such as, for example, how to switch between different formats in your session to keep it more engaging, the different dynamics of group sizes, what the best seating option is in a room, and where to stand and walk in the room. So as you can see, these things are sometimes quite small, but I do believe they're very easy to implement, and then they add up and make a big difference in your session. Overall, I have the feeling this book is really straightforward, doesn't get entangled in theory, and is just good advice based on years of personal experience. My favorite tip from the book is the golden rule of workshop Dazessa. It's basically that the audience mirrors your panic, which basically means that as long as you keep the cool, they will be cool with it as well, because getting panicked, getting nervous it's infectious. It jumps over to other people. So as a facilitator, your responsibility is to keep the cool, because that also lets other people keep their cool as well and stay more relaxed in the session. The next book is maybe the book that I read as kind of the first introductions to the world of facilitation, and it's The Art of Gathering from Parker. This is a brilliant book, and it goes into the dynamics of gatherings and how to make them more meaningful and transformative. One major theme in this book here is the importance of being intentional and thoughtful when it comes to gatherings. What does Parker mean by that? She means that you should put the purpose over the format. So before thinking about like, oh, what process do I go through? What activities do I want to use? First, think about actually why the people should come together for this session. The second thing is to creating a temporary alternative word. So much of the sessions that I run are kind of not bringing people out of their normal status quo context. And Parker really highlights the importance of really creating this temporary alternative word where people can really have a unique experience or change a bit of their approach and work style. Another thing I remember from the book is the importance of closing in the right way, because at the end of a session, whether it's like the summary or the Q&A, or maybe when people leave from a wedding, this is what often leaves a lasting impression and what people memorize. So it's really important to nail that. And my favorite learning from this book is actually captured in just a single line, but who wants to sail on a skipperless ship? And this topic or this chapter talks about the fact that you shouldn't be a chill host, that you should lay in the back and let people just do their own thing. She really emphasizes the role of being a facilitator, stepping up, taking an active role in leading the session. Because coming back to kind of the fact that nobody wants to be on a skipperless ship, it's true, right? People want to have the feeling there's somebody that takes a lead, that takes responsibility, and that has an idea of where this is going, because otherwise people are like, why am I on the ship and where is this going? They get afraid, they get uncertain. And this is a key kind of insight that I took away and that I always try to implement in my sessions. So now that we had a very actionable book and a very holistic book, the next book I'm going to recommend to you is a very comprehensive book. So if you really want to take the deep dive. And this book is called The Facilitator's Guide to Participatory Decision Making and is by none other than Sam Kaner. This book has 432 pages filled with an entire framework on how to facilitate. As the name says, it is all about this word participatory. In this book, basically what Sam Kaner outlines is that if you get people to fully participate, which is the goal, then the outcomes will be much better. And in order to get to this full participation, it's important to create mutual understanding, inclusive solutions, and shared responsibility within the session. And this is something that is outlined very clearly in the book with various techniques and things that can be used to achieve that. One, for example, puzzle piece that is introduced is the diamond of participatory decision making. And this diamond is not completely new because it looks similar to the design thinking diamond or the diamond that you find in game storming, but nonetheless I think it adds a couple more kind of details that make it very interesting as a general facilitation framework. One of my favorite learnings or parts of the book is when Sam Kaner lists out and explains all of the different techniques that you can use as a facilitator within the room. And those things are techniques such as, for example, paraphrasing, intentional silence, gathering ideas, balancing contribution, and summarizing. Some of these we know, but it's really helpful to see them side by side and then explain properly how to do each of these techniques. So the next book on the list is Creating Clarity by Holger Niels Pohl. So this book is all about enhancing communication and understanding with the visual tools and facilitation. And this is one of the newest books on my bookshelf, but I think it's currently kind of my favorite book to go into, to just open it up and look through it to implement some things or get inspiration for my sessions. The anchor point for Creating Clarity is the fact that we don't work together visually in the sessions that we have, whether those are meetings or workshops. Often we always have them in a verbal and synchronized way. And in the first part of the book, Holger is highlighting this, but he also talks a lot about kind of the missed potential of that. And he highlights also why visual tools have such a powerful impact, for example, to create a better shared understanding, to create something tangible that people can see, that they can create a mental model around, to make progress more visible, and also simply because visuals are also faster to digest. So it also saves people mental energy. So this first part is really interesting, but then the second part goes into a whole framework that Holger has created based on his 20 years of work experience, and he calls it the Clarity Framework. So it's very tangible, very great to remember and implement, and also like if you just look to this book, it's just so beautifully done because it's also very visual, which makes it a joy to read. Then in the third half, so towards the end of the book, it includes an entire visual library of tools and methods that you can use, and this is brilliant. Like looking at it, I think it has almost 350 pages, so it's quite comprehensive. It packs a punch, a lot of value, tools, insights, and inspiration. Highly recommend this book. Maybe currently my favorite. One of my favorite takeaways from the book is the use of transparent sticky notes. So I'm going to show you this one here. This is a transparent sticky note, as you can see. And this can be used, and it's something Holger shows in the book, to do really cool presentations where you pre-write these and then you put them one by one on the wall to create a story, to tell like a visual image or data, make it more interesting. And I have used this a couple of times. It's so fun to use, and it's a bit crowd pleaser because people find it so interesting. They never have seen transparent sticky notes, that I can tell you for sure. So while Holger's book is all about visual thinking, which is something that can boost and improve your sessions, there is also something that can really derail your session, and these are conflicts. And there is no better book for this than Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. So this is basically the Bible when it comes to communication and conflict management. And in short, this book introduces a communication method to foster empathy, understanding, and peaceful resolution of conflicts. And the corner piece of this book is the 4-step process of nonviolent communication, which is observation, feelings, needs, and requests. You can dive into that if you pick up the book, but you might think like, oh, feelings is not what we talk about at work, but it is very clear that like feelings and these underlying things, tension and friction and then relationships, is something that highly influences any type of meeting and conversation and discussion that you have. And this book gives you a great kind of mindset to think about it, to better understand it, and also to implement it. What I also really like is that this book is packed with detailed case studies and sample conversations that make it very easy as a reader to understand and apply what these principles mean and how these components of the book are built up. My favorite insight from this book is to turn negative requests into positive ones. I give you an example of that. So let's say you are facilitating a meeting and then you want to say, I want you to stop talking for this exercise, because you want to have some silence. This has a negative tone to it. I mean, you can already hear it. A better way, according to this book, would be to say something like, I would like you to take a minute of silence for this exercise. It's the same content, but it's more positive and less confrontational. And from my experience, in that way also leads to better results. And the next book on my list is Meetings by Default or by Design. And it's written by Mike van de Vijver and Erik de Groot. I think at least that's how you say it in Dutch. It's not such a popular book, but the reason why I include this is because I love the structure of this book. So as you might know, facilitation is a lot about breaking the status quo and doing something different with people. Because if you do something the same way it has always been done, you get the same kind of results. So as a facilitator, you always think about, okay, how can I approach this? And often it's different in the way that it has been done before. And what I like about this book is that in terms of the structure, it's divided into 4 different chapters. Reasons and objectives, production, participants and content. And then in each of the chapter, one area is highlighted that is relevant to a meeting. So for example, engagement or group size, or maybe how to set up the room. And then the authors take a look at what is done per default. And because that default is done, what are people missing out on, what's like kind of falling off the side because this default is executed. And then if you would do it by design, so in a proper way, how would you approach it? So maybe to put that a little bit more clearly, let me give you immediately my favorite takeaway and then show you kind of the structure. So my favorite takeaway from this book is some insights about who you should invite to the meeting and how you should do that. So per default, what is done in most companies is that people are selected by their experience and role. So if their experience and role is relevant to the topic, they are invited. So what people are missing out here on is that these people that are then in the meeting don't decide to join the meeting themselves, which per se already puts you basically in a position where the people that join are not as engaged because they're kind of forced to be there. They didn't make the decision themselves. If you would do it by design, for example, one way to do this, and this is explained in the book, is to give the group the chance to self-select, So for example, you do a broad invite and you tell people like, if you see that you can add value to the session and it's worth your time, then please fill out this form and then I will invite you to the session. But that way people decide on their own and they make this step, and this immediately creates much more engagement. And this is something that I've been doing also with trainings, for example. And I think it really makes a difference if you select people that should participate in a training, or you send out a link, say like, hey, who wants to do this? And then they self-select and say like, hey, I want to do this training. So yeah, this is one of my favorite takeaways from this book. And the last book on my list might be a little bit controversial, but it is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I'm telling you why. So a big part about facilitation is earning the trust, authority and respect from the people that you work with. If you don't have that, you could have the best exercises, the best activities planned, it won't go as well. And I think the best way to gain that trust, that authority and that respect is by being a good communicator and knowing how to deal and communicate with people and build relationships. And in my opinion, from all of the books that I've read, I think this book does the best job of giving actionable tips and insights on how to improve on that craft. I think this book is originally from 1936. That's when Dale Carnegie originally wrote it, and it's still in the bestseller list. And I think this is a good sign, because if it's in the bestseller list for this long, it has some value inside it, and it's still one of my favorite books. And basically is covered in different chapters that each chapter talks about one principle that you can use in your communication. And the topics in these chapters, for example, include things such as diving into what actually motivates people to take action, how to give feedback and criticism, how to get cooperation from people, and how to appeal to higher motives. So all things that are all relevant to facilitation and in general being a great communicator. And my favorite takeaway from this book is the power of using names. And if you know me personally, you might know that I try to do this very often, but basically what Dale Carnegie says in the book is that the sweetest sound for anyone is their own name or hearing their own name. And that is something that can be implemented in facilitation. And I give you a concrete example. So for example, recently I did a training with roughly 40 people, and I actually created an Anki deck of their faces and their names to memorize it. And I think, from my personal feeling, it made a huge difference, because I was able to greet people right from the start with their own name, talk to them directly, and this immediately kind of shortened the distance between me and them, helped me to build relations to them. And then before this training even started, I was already in great contact with people, I engaged with them and already broke the ice. So it's very, very powerful to use this, and there are a lot of other kind of principles like these in there that are kind of a great change of perspective and very actionable and insightful. So we went through a couple of books here, and this, if you would add it to your reading list, will take you some time. If you want to shorten the path, take a look at our course, the Facilitator Masterclass. We have iterated this course over 10 cohorts now. We have implemented a lot of the best insights we found in books and through our own experience and what we see in all of the trainings. So if you want to improve your craft as a facilitator, take a look at the course. Maybe it fits your needs. And then also honorable mentions here on the left side, I put them here. If you're looking for libraries of methods and tools, Game Storming and Liberating Structures are also great books to dive into. And if you really stick to the end of this video and watched it all, thank you very much for taking your time and effort. It's not given that people are taking time to educate and to improve what they are doing. So yeah, props to you, and hopefully see you around in another video.